Okay, so after we created the users entity and the posts with the relationship, so now I will create some fake data using Faker.js, and after that I will start writing the routes and the controllers. So if you look into our package.json, you will see two new libraries, so Faker and at types Faker. So this should be here. I made a mistake when I installed it. So yeah, so npm install Faker, and then npm install add types Faker. So yeah, Faker is just a library to generate randomized data. So inside our DB, I will create a folder called fake data, and inside of it, I will create our index.typescript for export, then users.typescript, and I will start with that. So I'll import a couple of things from Faker, a couple of objects. So the name, the internet, the data, the date, sorry, and the random, and I will import from TypeORM the connection and the repository, and I will import from the entities the user entity and the user type, and I will import colors, so I will look some things, and I will import from node emoji get. Okay, so now I'll export a function called fake users. It will be an async function that accepts a connection object. It's the same one we created inside our con.ts. By the way, if you are on Windows, you can't name a file like this. It will complain. You can Google that, why you can't do this, but yeah. And it will also accept an amount. So this is a number. So this is how many records for each entity we will create. And by default, it's 50. Okay, so let's get the user repo. Will be of type repository, and the generic type is user entity. Will be equal to connection.get repository, and pass the user entity class. Now I will use for of the variable will be underscore. I don't care about that because I will create an empty array. So array from, and pass length, an object that contains a length property with the amount. And now for each iteration, I will create a user will be equal to new user entity, and this will be of course of type partial user entity, because the ID will be created in the database. So I'm just creating an instance that I will save, and after saving that, it will be the complete user entity. So you can just now use it like this. So u.email will be equal to something, but I like to put them inside the constructor. So let's go there and do that. Yeah, here. So I'll define a constructor. I'll call the super constructor. And yes, so now I'll define arguments. So first, and I will just copy paste. It's really easy. So first name, last name, and the email, and the birth of date, and the type are optional. And I will just assign them to the properties we have, like this. So this is type is optional because the default is user, and the birth of date is optional because we said this like here. Okay. So now we need to pass values here in the constructor, but I will generate them using Faker. So const first name would be equal to name.firstName, and const last name would be equal to name.lastName, and the date would be equal to date.past, the birth of date. And email, you can generate that from the internet object. and type would be equal to random dot array element of admin and a user, and that would be of type user type, because we need to pass this type in the constructor. So yeah, so pass first name, last name, email, birth of date, and type. Okay, now we will await the user repo.save and pass the user we created. And the correct way to call this save function, since we are in TypeScript, is to pass the generic type. So I will save a partial user entity, and this will return a user entity. So okay, so after this loop finishes, which in each iteration it will await the save operation, then continue to the next iteration. So I will get this emoji, which is the white check mark, and console log the emoji, and then created amount users dot this color, and then bold, and now also the emoji. Okay, so this need to be exported in the index. So export from users, the fake user, and we need to import this inside our connection file. So go here and import from fake data the fake users, and just I will create an array called const fake funcs for functions. I will pass the fake users, and every function that should fake the data, I will put it inside this array, and at the end I will just, after this loop, I will loop through the functions and await each one of them. So but before that I will log that I am trying to create fake data, and it's a yellow color and bold characters. Now for of function of fake funcs, I will just await that and pass to it the connection, and that's it. So let's try to run it. So npm run as node dev index to TypeScript. This should give us 50 users. So yeah, created 50 users. Let's check that. So open database, happy. Let's sometimes stream is slow, so yeah. So these are the 50 users, as you can see, email, birth date, the type, so everything is fine. So let's go and create the posts as well. So posts TypeScript, and I will try to make it fast. So I will import the name and lorem and random from Faker. I will import the repository and the connection, and I will import from the entities. I misspelled that. The user entities and the posts entity, and import the colors and the get from node emoji. Now export const fake posts will be equal to a sync function that accepts the connection. And now I need to get the post repository just like we get the user repository, so from the connection. And I also need to get the users repository, and I need to get all of the users. So I will await the user repo dot find. This will get us all the users. So because I need to find all the users, then for each user create some posts, right? So we can't just create a post and do not assign a user to it. So we'll start from the users and then go to the posts. So for each user we have, we will generate 2 posts if a condition applies. So we will try to randomize it. Some of them will have posts, some of them will not. So we can just start. And by the way, you can pass to the find function this object tag and number to create to a small amount of your users posts. So yeah, so basically this is what just get you all the users. If you want to take maybe 10 users, you just pass tag and with the number. This is basically it. So now for of users, I would create a variable called should we create. It's a boolean, will be equal to random dot array element, so false and true. So 50% chance for each time we will create a post for the user or not. So if should we create, we can do this by using method random, by the way, but yeah. So I will create a post entity, right? And this will be of type partial post entity. But you need I will just do the same thing we did in the users entity, this constructor. So let's go to the posts entity and create that. Second. So yeah, call the super, and this dot title will be equal title, and this dot body will equal body. You can also put this dot user equal the user you passed, but I will leave it like this now, or I think I will just add it. So this user equal user, but just for the future, you don't need to pass a complete user entity when you save a post. You can just pass the user ID and that's it. So when you save the post, you can just pass an object that looks like this. So the title, let me put it as a comment. So the title, the body, user ID, just pass these, user ID like this. Pass these and the post will be saved with this user ID. So you don't need to pass the complete instance of the user entity. And you need to use this property name, not this, because this is the database and this is the object in TypeScript. And another way, if you don't want to put the user as an argument to the constructor, you can just put p.user equal user like this. But it's a good way to put them in the constructor. So first thing, I will create a title, would be equal to I'll use the name object, then job title, and the body would be equal to lorem.paragraphs. This is like a long text, and I will create 2 posts. So title 2 would be equal to the same thing, and body 2 will be equal to the same thing. And now this will pass the title and pass the body and pass the user, and p2, just the second post, I will pass title 2, body 2, and the same user. So I'll just await now the post repo dot save, pass p and pass p2 here, and I will call them in the correct way like this. And after that, I will just do the same thing I did in the users. So I'll get this emoji and just log that I created this amount of posts, which I forgot to define. So amount number by default equal to 50. So let's go and export that. So export from posts, the fake posts, and inside our connection, let's just import that and pass it at the second, because we need to find, if you pass this as the first, it won't create any posts, because we don't have any users at the moment. So just call the first function, which is the fake users, and we will await that. That will create 50 users, and after it we will await the posts, which will get the 50 users and create a post for each one of them. 2 posts for each one of them if a specific value is true. So hopefully nothing is wrong. So here we go, 50 users and 50 posts. Let's refresh. Okay. So as you can see, the title, the ID, the body, and the user ID. So if you have, if a user have post, it will have 2 posts. So user ID 1 have 2, and user ID of 2 have 2 posts as well. And the user ID of 7 have 2. So and so on. So this is a good start. Now we can just build our CRUD routes, and hopefully I will reach the authentication. And yeah, that's it.